that was way easier. No emotion came into that, more powerfully spoken. I'm going to start writing down every damn story now. I love it. It's simple.
I don't say these words lightly. This shit saved my life.
Needed to really unlock some stuff, needed to really break down some darkness that I had that was residual from something in the past. Plus, my father just died, and that messed me up pretty bad. Still does.
Sorry to hear that.
Greatest hero of my life, and all of a sudden it's gone. Yeah. And it's like, wait a minute. And I don't know why, I just struggle with it. I just did a podcast with a good friend of mine, Mark England. He's a mindset coach and breath coach. And he helped me unlock that problem about, it was my dad's helped so many more millions of people than I could ever possibly fathom helping. And when he left, I wanted to celebrate him. My family didn't want to celebrate my father. And so I did this podcast with Mark, and he did a 4-step process on me to help me slow the story down in my head. Because like we get high and tight, going back to kind of the PTSD a little bit and some of the things that we hold on to. It's in our chest. We're trapped in our chest. And if we can't unlock that breath, we can't switch from being high and tight because we don't know what it's like to be low and slow in our breath. That's going to get you.
You had me write a story earlier just before we walked in here and sat down. You talk about a 4-stepping process or model that you use. And this is what I'm a little nervous about, but you had me write this hard story, hard for me to tell. And I chose this story for you to help me break down and go through this process because I think a lot of people can maybe relate to it, where everybody's going to eventually lose somebody in their life. But what is 4-stepping before you crush my soul here? I mean, as much as I love mind architecture and these journeys, I'm a little nervous, but help me on this journey, man. What are you about to do to me?
Well, it's, instead of what am I about to do to you, it's what are we about to do for you? And what are we about to do for people that are watching and that are interested in learning about what they can do with the stories that they tell themselves about things. And I lost my dad a year ago too, in the summer. It's been a year. I get it.
Yeah, same time almost as mine.
Yeah, spooky. So there's this thing. It's called 4-stepping a story. And there's 4 steps involved, which is why it's called 4-stepping. It'd be really weird if there was 9 steps and we called it 4-stepping. There's 4. Step 1, and it's rocket science. It really is. It's very complicated. Good luck understanding it. Step 1, title the story and write it out conversationally. What's conversational writing? Glad you asked. So conversational writing is writing as if you were telling the story, because you are telling the story, full sentences with punctuation. I don't make the rules, half sentences and bullet points, or 2 short sentences about a story like that. It's not enough to summon the magic or summon the feelings. And this thing called 4-stepping, it's not context dependent. We're plugging in a story it's likely going to be a mixed bag for you of feelings and emotions. And we'll see where it goes. I have an idea, an educated guess of where it's going to go for you. And you can plug in anything you can 4-step any story. As the old saying goes in Enlifted, if it can be written down, it can be 4-stepped. Okay. You can plug an injury into it, an abuse into it, a death into it, a divorce into it, a failed business, anything that goes ouch, you can plug into it and unlock your breath in context to the story. You can also plug in other kinds of stories of a more positive nature, stories that you want to feel, wins that you've accomplished, progress that you've made. Well, let me back up a little bit. Guess where people keep their stories? Up here. And so what happens when a story stays in the head? As far as the ouchy stuff, they get replayed a lot. The stories are up close and personal. The breath is trapped in the chest. Once a story is written out, now it's finite. One, you've externalized it and it's finite. It has a beginning word and it has an end word. And then I can see you and myself, we can look at that same piece of paper and see all the squiggles in between, all the words. And what we're about to do, it is the crown jewel and the Swiss Army knife of the Enlifted method. So this, and it took 10 years to come out of my personal practice to get this to where it is. 4-stepping. It's unique coaching tech to us, and we give it away because it's cool. And if you've got a story that is annoying you, hurting you, or even haunting you, you can pick up a pen and you can get that thing out of your head. And a story kept in your head, the chances of you getting some significant resolution on that, slim to none. Now, he's got a story, and here's my question for you. Why are you doing this?
I care about other people, and I want other people to hear these vulnerable models, because vulnerability does not mean weakness. It's absolutely the opposite of weakness. It's the ability to withstand criticism or attack or advice, or, just, hey, this is what you need to do right now. And if I'm going to sit on the corner of my bed and say, how do I make the world a better place? Well, first I've got to be at my best first, because if I'm not, I help no one. And so it makes me want to take a dive into this, no matter how scared I am already. Like, fuck, I've been, since you started this 4-step conversation, I cannot unlock my fucking breath, and it's bothering me greatly. And I don't ever quit at anything I've ever done. So yeah, let's go.
He's giving y'all a gift. Everybody watching this, listening, it's a gift. Anybody with his background that has that kind of story written down is going to go into it. The feels will show up on camera.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, it's quite the gift.
Vulnerability is in my opinion, it's the number one judge of a man's character. If you can't be vulnerable, how are you supposed to be a good man? How are you supposed to be better for others that you serve if you can't serve yourself?
And then the last question, then we're in. What's the difference between having this story in your head and having this story written down?
It's a good question, because this is the first time I've ever written down something like this. For me, I can see it so much clearer. I always tell people, like, hey man, your past is something that you simply know. It's dope. It's data, tangible data on a previous engagement. Now, what do I do with it? I don't know why the fuck I couldn't see that with my own personal stories. And just so that's, I guess, to answer your question, that's what I just saw when I wrote it down. It's like, I've had tangible data this whole time that I could have processed and analyzed. I hear Jared in my head, analyze, and I'm not doing it. And now I'm already starting to. So,
step 1, title it, write it out conversationally, erring on the side of more detail than less. Full sentences and punctuation. Done. Step 2, read it. See what happens.
All right. I tried to be as punctual as I could.
Perfect.
All right, here we go. The title, The Most Famous Hero You've Never Heard of. Why that stuck in my head, I'm still trying to process that. The passing of my father started with a call from my brother to get to Knoxville, Tennessee, to visit my father in his final days. So I got on a plane immediately with my son, Hayden, my fiance, Bertoni. My other son was like, I can't do it, Dad. I can't do it. He was a little younger. And I said, hey, that's perfectly your choice. You don't have to be forced to go see a dying man when you just want to remember him the way he is. So I got there as fast as I could with the family. And of course, all the normal thoughts that started going through my mind. I should have spent more time with them. I should have told him more about how not only what he's done for me and my brother and family, but for the entire world. And then when I first see him, it's the hardest sight to see him, the most powerful man, your action hero, in such a weak, frail, and vulnerable way. So another flood of emotions come in, multiplying the thoughts that I had earlier. And when people are dying, I notice families typically lose their minds. They think irrationally. They start to accuse and blame other people and start to think about themselves. Selfishness kicks in. Greed kicks in. Now, at this point, my father was not suffering. And everybody that knows me knows my motto of pain is mandatory, suffering is optional. But he was in pain. And they started to talk about end of life right in front of him, standing right over the top of him. And just previous, he was mumbling in my ear that something we couldn't understand. And I said, Dad, what is it? What do you need? He said, a hamburger. And I turned around, looked at Doc. I said, does a dying man ask for a fucking hamburger? I even threatened the doctor not to talk about the end of life over the top of my conscious father, who's sitting there looking back and forth at us going, what the hell? And I said, if you do, there'll be another end of life discussion. And then the insults, fighting between my brother and my mother continued simply because I asked the most important question, in my opinion, that could ever be asked when somebody's closing out the end of their life. And that question was, how do you want to be remembered? Since my father's voice was hard to understand because of the breathing tubes and everything else they were putting in him, I asked my mother and my brother this question and how he wanted to be remembered. And they said that he doesn't want to be a burden. He simply wants to be cremated, and that's it. I responded with great frustration and reminded them of who our father was. He was a man that served his country faithfully, not only in the U.S. military, but also was one of the most senior men in a corporation called Florida Power, who would disappear at night for weeks at a time, fighting hurricanes and battling to get people's power back on, saving their lives, rescuing people from homes being destroyed by tornadoes, getting hit by lightning 3 times, plane crashes. The story goes on and on about this guy, rescuing people from their homes constantly. I'd hear these stories. When I'd say, Mom, where's Dad? She'd say, he's out helping people, son. This was a man that didn't want to be celebrated because he thought it would be a burden? ? I asked. Of course he did, because he only ever put others first. He gave everything and took nothing. And I started to realize the curse of the military's silent professional. I fought with my mother and my brother to point out to a point of total breakdown. I told them that I wanted to spend the night with my father, and they all needed to leave so I could tell them everything that he needed to hear of how he helped educate, how he helped guide, motivate, empower, and inspire not only me, my brother, but millions of people in the world. I spent my time with him that night on my knees all day long by his side, hold his hand as I fed him ice chips so I could understand the words that were coming out of his mouth as best I could. And as it started to get slower in his breath, he said, so I told him about his grandson joining the Marines, which he's in week 9 right now at boot camp. And his last words to me was, it's Hayden's turn. Held my dad for about 2 minutes, felt like an hour. And I stood up as everybody was in the room full of sorrow and sadness. And I looked at everybody and I pointed to my father and I said, all of us should aspire to be more like this man. Because there was no military honors or anything at this point, I went and found an American flag. I draped it over his body. And then my brother and my son escorted him all the way, as he used to do for others. I celebrate him every day the best that I can. But I feel the hero with his power and influence the world should never be forgotten. It's heroes like him that truly make the world a better place than what they came in it. And I strive to be and share with my children to be at least a fraction of what that man was to the world. And I know not everybody has that relationship with their father or their mother or their brothers or the sisters, but you have that relationship with someone. And I thought that would be a story to share.
And someone might have that relationship with you.
Yeah.
Great job on that. Describe the vibe. What are you feeling? Could be a variety of things. Take your time. If it is, name them all. If it's one thing, name that.
I mean, my neck is killing me right now. All of a sudden, pressure from a physical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, I feel slight relief because I've never told that story, you know, because it's so fresh.
Relief of what?
I don't know. Maybe, but it's accompanied by maybe nervousness, maybe fear. My mother watching this and them saying, "Why would you do that? Why would you air out our family shit?" Like that's always a thing with us. It's weird. I hate it. Lack of vulnerability. They hate when I say the word vulnerability, and I want them to know that I'm doing this out of the most love that I could ever possibly find in the bottom of my heart. And again, sharing our experiences with others. So I guess the nervousness there, but there is a sense of relief that I maybe just because I wrote it down, maybe because I just said it for the first time, and I can see a process starting, and I can start to see that drill being broken down, and start to not be as insecure about it. Maybe
Step 1, title it, write it out, whatever it is. Step 2, read it. Whatever happens is right. Whatever happens is correct. Step 3, we'll do a modified application of this because of the length of the story. Go to the part. It might be the last paragraph. There might be 2 last paragraphs and start where we got a flag and draped it over his body. So step 3 is where you read the same story slower. So step 3 is the slow roll. Again, I don't make the rules. We run all the split tests. It's 30% slower than your normal rate of speech.
30%.
So 70% of your normal rate of speech, starting at we got an American flag. And on a mechanical note, everybody, mechanics of story, when someone's slow. So what am I here to do? I'm here to help you create space and clarity for you, not have any wise answers or some who cares what. And part of that, a big part of that, comes down to helping you unlock your breath in context to this story. So starting at
just last paragraph.
Just the last paragraph, slow roll. When someone slows down their rate of speech, the breath begins to loosen up. Remember, everybody, the faster the story goes, the harder it is to change. And when that thing is in your head, it's going a mile a what? Minute.
Okay.
And the breath gets locked. Good luck changing it. So slow read, step 3, 30% slower. See what happens.
I went and found an American flag and draped it on his body. And my brother and my son escorted him all the way, as he used to do for others. I celebrate him every day the best that I can. But I feel the hero, with his power and influence to the world, should never be forgotten. It's heroes like him that truly make the world a better place than what they came in it. And I strive to be and to share with my children to be at least a fraction of what he was to the world.
Nailed it.
That was different.
How so?
Turn the story down a lot. I normally talk at speed, you know me. I have to really catch myself to slow it down. And that was way easier. No emotion came into that. It was more powerfully spoken. Wow. Okay. I could break down everything like that, I guess.
Correct.
Just slow the shit down.
Correct. And that's exactly what happens when someone slows down their rate of speech.
It allows you to breathe.
Exactly. And then you get the evolution from the story instead of the revolution of the story. Step 4, more rocket science. Same last paragraph. Starting with, I went and found an American flag. And at the end of each sentence, I want you to do the unthinkable. So it's the slow read And when you get to each sentence, and I'm going to do it with you, you do this. Smooth in, smooth out, on to the next sentence.
So same as an off-gassing technique, man.
Correct.
Ride the exhale.
Correct.
I went and found an American flag and draped it on his body. My brother and my son escorted him all the way, as he used to do for others.
Read along with us, everybody.
I celebrate him every day the best that I can. But I feel the hero with his power and influence to the world should never be forgotten. It's heroes like him that truly make the world a better place than what they came in it. And I strive to be and to share with my children to be at least a fraction of what that man was to the world. That's the first time I felt low and slow. Abracadabra, motherfucker. That's interesting.
This is that Wu-Tang shit.
That's the 4-step.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
I want to just go. I want to keep going. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go through this whole thing paragraph by paragraph and break. I'm going to start writing down every damn story now. I mean, this isn't rehearsed. Obviously, you can't rehearse that. That's peace and acceptance. I love it. It's simple. And you hear us, all we do is preach, keep it simple, stupid, man. You know, because it isn't simple. You aren't stupid.